Greetings, this is TimeRider with a little midweek restoration. The 25A Bedford van. The toy is based on the Bedford CA, a brutish design that was used for a variety of purposes from ambulances to, well, vans. Bedford produced these from 1952 until 1969. Mine's in okay shape. The base actually looks pretty good. I'm thinking I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. Of course, you can see the paint is horrible. The casting on the back door leaves a lot to be desired. I did something a little different with this one. I'm not even really sure why, but I drilled out the center hole first. As I recall, Matchbox produced 3 castings based on this design in the 1 to 75 range. The 25A, the 29A milk truck, and the 42A news truck. And if anybody can think of anything else, just put it in the comments. The post, it was just a post and a clip in the rear bumper. The post in the front was really close to the front bumper. It was really nearly impossible to remove it without cutting into the front bumper a little bit. Then of course I'm, going to clean up the post. One thing about these A-series, they're pretty simple. Nothing opens or turns. Check, make sure this thing goes together real nice. Yeah, nothing opens, nothing turns, and, oftentimes they have no windscreen. I'm going to tap out that center post with my 2-56 tap. This particular casting is older than I am. It was built in 1958. They only made these things until 1960. I know this is a 58 though because of the configuration of the wheels and axles. Oddly enough, this particular toy is more valuable if you find it with black wheels. And drop her in my aircraft stripper, and down she goes. And then, of course, once I get the paint off, it's just about time to get ready to put more paint back on. The paint came off pretty good. I will say so that that back door, the casting, it was really, really rough, so I wound up having to pick at it a little bit to get the paint out. It's like the casting lines weren't straight. They were incredibly rough. Maybe that was actually where the seam for the mold was. And if you look, it's bent. The whole roof leans to the left, so, I tried what usually works for me, which is just brutishly trying to bend it back into place, but that didn't work, so I tried using my thunder stick there as kind of a drift to see if I get a little better purchase. That didn't really work, and so I got to the last resort, which is to actually use a hammer on it. I don't like doing this, but sometimes it's the only way. And in this case, I was able to get the roof straight without doing too much damage. All that happened was I cracked the center post, which is the thinner of the 3 posts. So a little bit of super glue, and then I take my little hooking tool there, and what I'm doing here is I'm pushing super glue into the seam because I'm using gel super glue. And then I'm going to do what everybody else does and put a little baking soda on it. Help it cure a little faster and give it some substance. So actually I was priming a few things, so I had my can of Tamiya white sitting there. Usually on something like this I might be inclined to use a duplicolor. just because it's not, it's a nothing special paint job. It's just straight up blue paint. I did mix the paint. The blue right out of the jar was a little too dark, so I added a bit of white into it to bring the color out of that deep blue. It's still pretty dark blue, but it's not as deep as it is right out of the jar. Throw on a tack coat, and then like usual, I let it sit for 20 minutes or so is usually good enough, at least the method I use. And then I come back with a little bit heavier middle coat. And sometimes I'll wait after I put the middle coat on. Sometimes if the paint is flowing nicely, I'll just open the valve a little bit and go right into a wet coat. This particular model too, I used semi-gloss clear coat. I do that pretty much on all of my restorations because I think it gives a more natural looking shine to the period. It's really wet right now, so it looks super shiny, but it's not quite that shiny when it cures. And then according to the variation listings, this needed to have headlights and grill painted. I didn't do anything with the base other than clean everything up a little bit before I put it together. And like typical, when I'm doing grills and stuff, I always like to just drop my brush in the middle of the grill when I can, in case I have a lot of paint on it, like I kind of did that time, because I don't want it going all over the model. But yeah, assembly was one screw, so I didn't really do anything with it. But here's how I started with the. Most of the paint is gone. It's got the crimped wheels. The decals, it's supposed to have decals on it. The grill needs to be painted. The roof is all crooked. So anyway, let's go to where I finished. Well, there you have it. Interesting thing about those decals, I ordered a set from Steve Flowers in the UK. I actually made a fairly big order, and this was missing. And I don't fault him for that. It was like $1.25 or something. It's not a big deal. So I ordered another set from here in the States, and when they came in, I went to put them on, not realizing that they were stickers, thinking they were water slides. And so I threw them in some water, and of course the paper backing got all wet. These stickers are as brittle as water slides, but they're adhesive on the back. So anyway, when I was putting the left side on, you can see I cracked it a little bit up by the D, getting it off of the wet paper back. But there will be an episode of The Bench, so this is TimeRider, and I'll leave the light on for you. Hey, thanks for sticking around for this episode of The Bench. I don't know if you guys, I think I've talked about this a couple of times, this Rolls-Royce convertible that I'm doing a custom on, and I've been looking all over for a windshield, and Paul over at Fat Guy Productions in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, full of grasshoppers right now, he has a 3D printer, and we've been working trying to get a decent fitting windshield, and that way he can learn to do clear parts too on his new printer. And then I showed you this after my last video, and of course Lesney had cast lines into it where to put the decals, so I'm filing those off. And then now we get to that Mustang that I talked about. I've been filing the casting lines off of the Mustang, and I gotta tell you, this is one of my favorite and one of my least favorite Lesney castings, just because of that. Lesney, if you're going to cut a hole in the side of a car and put a little lever on there so you can have steering wheels, why don't you do it to the 32E Jaguar? Well, I know why you didn't do it, because the Jaguar is such a beautiful casting. Well, to a young man in America, this Mustang, it's the same thing. To cut a hole in the side of this beautiful casting was blasphemy, and so I need to fix that. So I used some Milliput I'm going to fill that hole in and redesign the side of this car the way it's supposed to be. I don't have any of the little steering components anyway. And yeah, we're gonna do a custom on this that's hopefully gonna do it proud. And as far as the original goes, Lesney, shame on you. Shame, shame, shame. Horrible thing to do. But and it's such a beautiful casting too. The details in it are amazing. Anyway, that's it for this episode of The Bench. Subscribe if you like. Click the thumb down if you don't. If you want to be critical of my work, please be respectful. And I'll see you next time.